the illusion of constant access, why we mistake availability for connection. What if I told you that the peace we crave isn't hidden in some remote monastery, or in the pages of a 1,000-year-old scroll, but in your unread notifications? What if the thing that's exhausting you is your own availability? We live in an age where being reachable is mistaken for being relevant. We answer texts within seconds, emails within minutes, and notifications almost reflexively. We're always on, always responsive. And yet we are more anxious, more fragmented, more disconnected from ourselves than ever before.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
I've given away millions of dollars, built insane challenges, and spent entire days buried alive. But nothing is more terrifying than chasing peace in a world addicted to noise. And philosophically, this noise isn't just digital. It's existential. We are afraid of missing out not just on experiences, but on being seen. So we make ourselves available to everyone, all the time. But here's the question: who are you when no one is looking and no one is expecting anything from you? Do you even know? We confuse presence with presence online. We think being there for others constantly is a virtue. And yes, compassion matters. But if you are so open that your boundaries dissolve, are you really a self or just a vessel? Let's take this back. The Stoics, especially Epictetus, taught that freedom comes from detachment, not disconnection from life, but from unhealthy attachments to things outside your control. Now imagine how they would react to the tyranny of the seen checkmark on a message. We've outsourced our peace to the feedback loop of attention. Availability becomes a performance. Think about that. You're not just being there for others, you're being seen being there. And that changes everything. The self becomes performative. You're not just doing good things, you're presenting the image of someone who's always on. But the truth is, no one can be truly wise or even truly kind if they never retreat into silence. We've confused responsiveness with love. But real love, real connection requires something deeper than reaction time. It requires presence, yes, but not constant presence. It requires depth, not breadth. It demands that you be somewhere fully, not everywhere partially. So why do we do this? Why do we keep making ourselves available when it robs us of our peace? Because deep down we fear irrelevance. We fear being forgotten. And that fear is so powerful that we willingly trade our peace for a ping. But here's the paradox: the more available you are, the less present you feel. Let me ask you this: when was the last time you were unreachable and felt powerful, not guilty? We've internalized a false moral code where unavailability is selfish and responsiveness is noble. But let's flip that. If your constant responsiveness makes you tired, bitter, or spread thin, what exactly are you giving to others? A ghost of yourself? Even nature teaches us this. The most majestic creatures, lions, whales, owls, are not constantly seen. They emerge when necessary. Their presence is powerful because it's rare. So why do we think we must always be visible to matter? To be always on is to deny yourself the sacred rhythm of reflection. You can't think clearly if you're always reacting. You can't grow roots if you're always being pulled in every direction. Let's go deeper. What if your availability is a form of self-abandonment? That's a heavy question. But think about it. Every time you say yes out of obligation, every time you pick up that call when your soul needs silence, you're prioritizing someone else's urgency over your own inner equilibrium. and that's not noble. That's dangerous. Peace is not passive. It's not the absence of noise. It's the presence of something deeper, alignment. And you can't be aligned if your soul is being tugged at by every little buzz. We must reclaim our attention, not just from devices, but from expectations. From the myth that being available is the same as being connected. It's not. If anything, the people who change the world, philosophers, artists, scientists, even revolutionaries, have always known how to disappear. Not forever, but long enough to return with a deeper truth. Why don't we honor that anymore? Here's a practical challenge. Go a day without announcing your unavailability. No, I'm taking a break posts. Just disappear. See what happens. See what rises in the silence. See who you are when no one is watching. It might shock you, because that's when the real work begins. When you are no longer performing, no longer curating your presence for others, you face your real self. And that self is often messy, uncertain, full of unresolved fears. But that self is also the key to your peace. And here's the wild thing. The moment you reclaim your unavailability, you become more magnetic. Not because you're playing hard to get, but because you're full. You're not leaking your energy into 1,000 conversations. You're rooted. This isn't about isolation. It's about integration. You can be connected and unavailable. You can love people deeply and still say, not now. That's not cruelty. That's maturity. So the next time you feel guilt for not replying, ask yourself, am I betraying someone else, or am I finally being loyal to myself? We need more people who aren't afraid to disappear for a while, who aren't addicted to being seen. Because those are the people who come back with wisdom, with clarity, with presence that matters. You don't need to answer every call. You don't need to show up for every ping. You need to show up for yourself. And sometimes that means being invisible, because peace doesn't come from being everywhere. It comes from being here fully, quietly, unapologetically. The sacred power of disappearance, why the world needs your silence. We're told that to matter in this world, we must be seen. That visibility is synonymous with value. That if we're not showing up, checking in, posting, responding, reacting, then we're fading into irrelevance. But that entire premise is built on a hollow foundation. The truth is, the most powerful transformations, the ones that actually change lives, shift cultures, and realign souls, happen in silence, in solitude, up in the sacred space where no one is watching. Disappearance is not death. It's incubation. It is in disappearing that we become more fully ourselves. But modern life punishes disappearance. We're made to feel guilty for not responding, for not being instantly accessible, for stepping away to recalibrate. And yet, the irony is brutal. We crave depth in our relationships, authenticity in our conversations, and meaning in our lives, but we suffocate all three under the weight of our constant availability. How can a tree grow deep roots if it's being dug up every few hours to be admired? That's what we do to ourselves when we never step away. We interrupt our own growth because we fear being forgotten. But here's the paradox. You are most remembered when you return from silence with something meaningful to say. Disappearance isn't about becoming irrelevant. It's about becoming refined. Think of the philosopher in the mountains, the monk in the monastery, the artist who vanishes from the public eye to paint from the soul. Their worth doesn't diminish in absence, it intensifies. Why? because what they bring back is rare. Scarcity breeds value, but we've been conditioned to believe that our value is in our volume, how often we post, how quickly we reply, how frequently we perform. That's not connection. That's consumption. And we're not built to be consumed that way. We're not vending machines of attention. We're human beings with breath, with breaking points, with spiritual bandwidth that needs to replenish. And silence? That's the recharge. There is a holy quality to disappearing. It's not a retreat from life, it's a return to center. It's where you remember who you are without the gaze of others shaping you. Because here's a question no one asks enough. Who are you when no one is expecting anything from you? When no one needs you, watches you, or evaluates you, what remains? The answer to that question is where your peace begins. Because peace is not found in applause. It's not found in responses. It's found in the stillness where your identity is no longer performing. Disappearing doesn't mean abandoning your responsibilities. It means reclaiming your sovereignty. It's saying, I will not be dictated by the demands of a world that confuses attention with affection, availability with love, and productivity with worth. And yes, people might not understand. Some might call you selfish. But what's more selfish, constantly showing up empty, drained, scattered, or stepping away to become whole again? So when you do return, you have something real to give. We need to rewire our thinking. The world doesn't need more of your presence, it needs more of your essence. And essence only emerges when you stop scattering yourself thin across 1,000 interactions that mean nothing and start asking, what do I actually want to say? Who do I actually want to be? And make no mistake, disappearing is hard. Especially in a culture that rewards visibility, that monetizes attention, that praises the grind. But what if the grind is just another form of escape? What if constantly being on is a way to avoid facing the real inner silence, the questions we don't want to answer, the truths we don't want to face? Because in that silence, there are no likes, no replies, no affirmations. There's just you, raw, exposed, unfiltered. And that's terrifying. But it's also liberating. Because once you can sit with yourself in that silence, once you can face the void and not flinch, you become unshakable. You stop needing to be everywhere, because you're finally somewhere. You stop chasing peace, because you found it in the place it always was, beneath the noise. Let me ask you this: what would your life look like if you measured success, not by how many people you reach, but by how deeply you touch the few who truly matter? What if you stopped trying to be available to everyone and started being present to yourself? Your ideas, your healing, your evolution. The world doesn't need more noise. It needs more signal. And your signal gets clearer the moment you unplug from the demand to constantly be seen. The most profound ideas, the ones that shape civilizations, aren't born on timelines. They're born in silence. In the quiet hours where no one is watching, no one is liking, and no one is waiting on your response. That's where your soul begins to speak. And it speaks softly, not through notifications, but through a whisper that says, "This is who I really am." So if you want peace, stop being so available. Don't answer every call. Don't reply to every message. Don't feel obligated to explain your silence. Because silence doesn't need an excuse. It is its own justification. It is the soil from which clarity grows. And you don't owe anyone your constant presence. You owe yourself your deepest presence. And that begins with stepping back, stepping inward, and trusting that your worth is not in how often you show up, but in what you bring when you finally do. Your time is sacred. Peace begins where urgency ends. We live in a culture addicted to urgency. Everything is a fire. Everything needs your attention now. Messages come with implicit countdowns, notifications scream for immediate reaction, and the world subtly convinces you that if you don't respond instantly, you're failing at relationships, at work, at life itself. But here's the truth: no one is telling you. Urgency is a thief. It steals your presence, your clarity, your power. And it does something more insidious. It conditions you to believe that your time is not your own. But it is. Your time is sacred. It is the most finite, intimate, and non-renewable resource you possess. And when you give it away out of obligation, guilt, or social conditioning, you are not just losing time, you are losing yourself. Every time you say yes to someone else's urgency, without discernment, you may be saying no to the quiet, necessary work of becoming who you were meant to be. We've been taught that to care is to be instantly available. But real care, real love, real wisdom, they don't operate on push notifications. They operate on depth. And depth takes time, space, and silence. You can't be deep if you're always rushing. You can't be wise if you're always reacting. And you certainly can't be at peace if your life is ruled by the tyranny of the urgent. Ask yourself, what percentage of your life is lived on your own terms, and what percentage is lived in reaction to someone else's timeline? That question alone should shake you. Because chances are you've surrendered more of your sacred time to false urgency than you realize. And the cost isn't just stress or fatigue, it's the erosion of your identity. When you're always reacting, you're never really choosing. You're not setting the tempo of your life, you're dancing to someone else's beat. And often that beat is frantic, disconnected, and shallow. But here's the revolutionary idea: you are allowed to slow down. You are allowed to pause. You are allowed to not reply. You are allowed to protect your time as fiercely as you protect your oxygen. Because in a world that wants to rent your attention by the minute, reclaiming your time is an act of rebellion and of self-respect. Imagine what would happen if you guarded your inner world with the same intensity that you guard your most prized possessions. Imagine if you treated silence not as a void to be filled, but as a sanctuary to be honored. That's where peace begins, not when the world gets quieter, but when you stop letting it dictate your rhythm. Peace is not something you stumble upon by accident. It is cultivated. It is built moment by sacred moment out of choices that honor your inner alignment over external approval. And those choices are hard, especially at first, because you'll disappoint people. You'll miss out on things. You'll be misunderstood. But you'll also start to breathe again. You'll start to hear your own thoughts. You'll start to move from intention, not reaction. And that shift, that's where your power lies. Because the most peaceful people are not the ones who have less to do, they're the ones who refuse to be ruled by urgency. They respond from stillness, not stress. They act from clarity, not chaos. And they understand that being fully available to everyone means being fully present to no one, including themselves. So here's a challenge: audit your availability. Look at your week, your habits, your reflexes. Notice how often you respond out of fear of missing out, fear of disappointing someone, fear of being perceived as selfish. And then ask yourself, what would my life feel like if I prioritized peace over performance? What if I stopped measuring my worth by how responsive I am, and started measuring it by how aligned I am. Because alignment never rushes. It doesn't panic. It doesn't demand your constant attention. It waits quietly for you to return to yourself. And when you do, something extraordinary happens. You stop needing peace as a future goal because you realize it's already within you. It was just buried under noise. Let this be your permission slip to disappear not from life, but from the illusion that you must always be reachable to be relevant. You don't. You are not a customer service line. You are not a chatbot. You are a soul, and that soul deserves to unfold slowly, intentionally, with breath and space and dignity. So the next time you feel the pull to answer immediately, pause. Ask yourself, is this truly urgent, or have I just been trained to treat everything like it is? Most of the time, you'll find that the world won't end if you wait. And in that waiting, you'll find something far more valuable than a quick reply you'll find yourself. So if you truly want peace, if you truly want to feel grounded in a world that never stops buzzing, then stop being so available. Not because you don't care, but because you care enough to protect what matters most, your time, your focus, your energy, your essence. Peace isn't found in the next message, the next reply, or the next update. It's found in the space you create by choosing not to respond. So be bold, be silent, be unavailable. And in doing so, become more fully present, more deeply rooted, and more profoundly at peace than you ever imagined.